Hi everyone, this is a very quick recipe for Seeni Sambol pastry rolls, which is suitable for vegetarians too because there is no meat in it. So to make these rolls I have got 400 grams of ready-made Seeni Sambol and I'm draining it to get all the oil out of it, so it's draining at the moment, and 200 grams of potato boiled and mashed, and 400 grams of puff pastry all rolled out, and I have rolled it into a 16.5 inch by 10.5 inch rectangle, and I will be cutting that into 3 strips lengthwise. It will depend on the width of your oven, and if you think that width is not going to go in, you can cut it the short way as well. You will have to cut it into 5 strips, roughly just over 3 inches wide. So let us start by mixing the Seeni Sambol with the potato. So I'm going to add the Seeni Sambol and the mashed potato. You can do this recipe only with the Seeni Sambol, but it can be a little bit spicy, so that's why I'm adding the potato, and also gives a little bit of volume as well. And it does not have to have much moisture because the Seeni Sambol already has got the required wetness in it. The mashed potato need not be very finely mashed, and if you have a few solid pieces, it's okay because then you have got something to bite into, which is nice. And so I have got my mixture ready, and now I'm going to divide it into 3 portions. Let me put it on a flat plate so that you can see it. So this is the Seeni Sambol and the mashed potato mixture. Now I'm going to section it out into 3 because I'm going to cut the pastry sheet into 3 strips. However, if you are planning to cut the pastry into 5 short strips, make sure that you section out the filling into 5. So I got it into 3 sections, and I'm going to cut this pastry into 3 strips now. So I got my old pizza cutter, which I'm going to use to cut the 3 strips, and so roughly we can cut it. And I got my 3 strips cut into the 3 long strips, okay? By the way, this pastry is just under 3 millimeters thick, and the weight of the pastry is about 400 grams. I'm going to dust my surface with a little bit of flour and place one of the strips on it. And you can lightly dust the top as well if you were thinking of turning it over. Get the better side, the better looking side to the top. So it's going to be like that. And now I'm going to put the filling on it, the potato and the Seeni Sambol filling. And using your fingers, make it into a like a shape of a long sausage. Seeni sambol tends to have quite a bit of curry leaves. I remove some, but I keep some because you can eat it. It's quite healthy. So don't worry too much about it if it has. But if you have big pieces of cinnamon or the pandang leaf or the rampe as you call it, you can remove that because you can't actually bite into it. But definitely the curry leaves can stay. Don't overfill the thing because it can burst open when it's baking. So if the 1/3 portion which you sectioned out is too much, you can put a little bit less, which is what I have actually done. Spread it out nicely, and now it's time for us to fold it over. You can put a little bit of mildly warm water to stick it together, or some egg white or mixture of egg white and egg yolk, doesn't matter because this pastry will stick anyway with water. So now I'm going to put a little bit of water on the edge, one edge, and if necessary a little bit on the sides. You can leave it open, but it might leak out a little bit when it's baking. So I put some on the side as well, and then gently lift. Maybe I'll do it towards the camera so that you can see it. You can stick the two ends of the pastry together. And then to have the old-fashioned look, you can use a fresh fork and just fork it down a little bit. Right. Now gently flatten it so that it will have a nice shape to get rid of the unevenness. And after this you can transfer it onto your baking sheet. So now it's ready to go on the baking tray, and as I said, my oven is large enough to take this with, so that's my baking tray, which has been lined with non-stick sheet of paper, and I'm going to transfer this very gently to the baking sheet. So you can see one of them. So I will pause the camera until I get the other three ready as well, and then I'll show you a picture just before it goes in the oven. You can use short crust pastry for this recipe, but I personally like the puff pastry because it becomes very light and puffed up when it's baked, so it's not a heavy snack. So that's my last strip, and I'm going to transfer it onto my baking tray. So these are the three strips that are ready to go in the oven, and your oven should have heated up to about 220 degrees centigrade or gas mark 7. So all you have to do now is, before it goes in the oven, you need to give it a little bit of egg wash on it to have the glaze once it's baked, and you can do that just using one egg slightly mixed up and applying it on the top. My oven is heating up at the moment, and I've set it at 220 degrees. Out of the 3 strips, I cut each strip into 12, so that means we have got 36 pieces of pastry coming out of the oven. So if you want to double it, you can do the same thing with another sheet of pastry, or this should be more than enough for a snack for an evening. With a nice glass of wine, yeah, and at 220 degrees I will be putting the pastries in. So this is my egg wash, so I'm going to give it a good glaze on top for the pastries. In addition to it looking nice, it also gives another additional advantage in case you have accidentally punctured the pastry and there are like bits waiting to leak out, that will seal as well. So now it's all ready to go in the oven, and I'm going to put it on the second shelf, and it's at 220 degrees, and I will check it in 15 minutes to see how it's doing. As you can see, the pastries are nicely placed in the oven, and normally it takes between 30 to 35 minutes depending on the shelf that you're baking it on or the oven temperature, but generally 220 degrees, gas mark 7, baked for 30 to 35 minutes should be okay for it to look nicely puffed and golden brown. I have about 2 minutes more to go, and you can see the golden color has appeared beautifully and risen as well, and I will show them to you once they come out of the oven. So these are the pastries coming out of the oven, you can see, and they turned out really nice golden brown, and I'm just going to put them to cool a little bit before I wedge them. So these are the finished and nicely baked pastries, and I'm going to use my pizza cutter to separate them into the small wedges that I made. So when you're cutting them, just make sure that you cut them right down to the bottom, or else the bottom layer can stick to the base. So just make sure that you go through really nicely, and then you can have some nicely separated pastry rolls waiting to cool down. As you can see, they're all nicely cut and ready to cool down. And then once it cools down, you can serve it immediately, or you can keep it in the fridge in a box and warm it up in the oven for about 10-12 minutes before you serve, if you want to use it the next day, or from the freezer, because it freezes quite well. But I personally would like to serve it the day it's made. So these are the pastry rolls that have cooled on the rack, and I have moved some of them onto a little serving platter for you to have a look. So let me show that to you. So these are the ready-made rolls on a serving platter. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please remember to subscribe to my channel, and I will catch up with you real soon. Take care. Bye for now.